Shabbat Shalom. I am going to try to attempt my first Torah portion teaching on YouTube. But I don't have a great setup here, so I just wanted to show you that I've been studying this Torah portion this morning, Vayera. I have lots of notes, lots of reading, so I can't guarantee it'll be it'll be very short. So, I really wanted it to look at the screen, but it's impossible to read that. I've tried every option this morning. So, if you'll just bear with me, I will just try to do this teaching as good as I can. Like I said, I don't have a great setup here, but I'm going to try to fix it where I do have a better setup someday without you having to look at all my junk in the background. But anyhow, if you don't know what a Torah portion is, it's once a week there's certain portions of scripture read. There's Old Testament and the Torah, and then the Tanakh, like the prophets, and then the Gospels. These are read every week by, Jews in the synagogues read them, but usually they just read the Old Testament, the Torah, and the Tanakh. Whereas the Messianic believer that believes in Yeshua, Jesus, they add the Gospels in there. So today's Torah portion is called Vayera. It's the fourth reading in the cycle this year because it just started again new. It goes for a year and then it starts over. So now we're in the fourth cycle. And the readings will be Genesis 18, 1 through 22, and all the way through, 18, beginning in 18:1, going all the way through 22:24. And then the Haftarah, which is the Tanakh or the prophets, is 2 Kings 4, 1 through 37, and then the Gospels is Luke 17, 28 through 37. Vayera means, and he appeared. And he, meaning the Lord, Yeshua, Yahweh, is what that means. And so the beginning starts in Genesis 18, and Abraham was in the plains of Mamre when 3 men appeared to him, and he bowed down. To them he knew that they were holy men, so he bowed down to them, and he asked them to stay a while, and that he wanted to be hospitable to them and to cook for them. And so they agreed, and so they sat under the shade tree while Abraham went in and told his servant and his wife to make a meal. And they got a young calf, and they had bread, meat, cheese, and butter, it says, and they ate with them. Now, a lot of people think that they were 3 angels, but I believe that one of them was Yahweh, Yeshua himself. The other 2 were angels on their way to Sodom. And so, as they were getting ready to leave, because of his hospitality, the angels, or Yahweh, said to him, to Abraham, and Sarah was in the tent, and they said that this time next year Sarah would have a baby. And Sarah laughed, and so we all remember that part of the story, is that Sarah laughed because she was thinking that, she's older, she's past the time where women can have babies, and so she laughed. But Yahweh said, is there anything too hard for Yahweh? So that should give us hope that whatever we're believing for, nothing's too hard for him. And the second point, there's a lot of reading. I could do that, but it would take a long time, so I just maybe wrote notes and stuff from each portion that spoke to me. So as they're leaving, they talk among themselves, the angels and Yahweh, and say, shouldn't we tell Abraham what we're going to do? And this part I want to read. So I do have some reading I want to do. It's verse, 18:16. And the men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom, And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord, which I believe is Yahweh, said, Will I hide from Abraham that thing which I am about to do, seeing that Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by him? For I know him, that he will command his children and his children after him, and they will keep the way of Yahweh, to do acts of loving kindness. Below it says, acts of loving kindness means going beyond the requirement of God to be just, to do right, and judgment. So Yahweh may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. And Yahweh said, Because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I shall go down now and see whether they have done everything I told them, which has come to me, and if not, I shall know. And the men turned their faces and went towards Sodom. Now, the reason that Yahweh decided he would tell Abraham is because Abraham was a servant, and he knew that through Abraham would teach his children the way to live. That's how I don't like to call myself a Messianic or a Hebrew roots, but I like to say that I'm trying to walk in the way that Yahweh Yeshua did. And so he knew that through him he would teach all these things to his children, and their children would teach to their children. So that's why he felt like they should tell Abraham what was going on. But when they did tell Abraham what was going on, this is when I wrote in my Bible, it's the first time some Jewing went down. You know, we've always heard that Jews will have one price, you'll have a price, but they'll Jew you down from it. So Yahweh and Abraham are standing here and talking, and it starts out with 50, I think. And it says, if there's 50 righteous in the city, will you still destroy it? And he kept Jewing down to 40, down to 30, down to 20, down to 10. So Yahweh said, no, if there's 10 in the city, I won't harm them. So this is where this takes place, right after having a meal with them, and the men are getting ready to leave. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to read the footnote on that too. And footnote 1816. Oh, this is the footnote is about the way. It says this is the first use of way in reference to walk with the Lord, a way of life, used more than 50 times in the Hebrew scriptures, about 12 times in the New Testament. So it's the way you're supposed to live, and that's what he knew Abraham would be teaching his descendants. So we move on to chapter 19. It's where Lot is rescued. In Lot's story, it says 2 men approached Lot, or appeared. Now, could it be, I mean, the first was 3, one of them was Yahweh, 2 angels, so the 2 angels went on to Sodom, and when Lot looked up, he saw them, and it says that 2 men appeared to him, and Lot did as Abraham did, and he made food for him. It says that he made unleavened bread in my Bible, so unleavened bread is only usually served during the month of Passover, Nisan. So could have been that days, during that time of the year. But the angels wanted to stay in the streets, but Lot said, no, you can't do that. You can't stay there. So before they laid down, the men of the city were evil. And they were after these angels. They wanted to know them. And the word know is like, it's the same thing as when a man knows his wife to consummate a marriage. So that's what the men wanted to do to them. But Lot wouldn't let them, and so Lot was willing to lay down his own 2 daughters and give them to the evil men But the angels reached out and grabbed Lot and pulled him back in the house and shut the house, and he caused a blindness to fall upon all the men that were outside. And the angels asked Lot, how many in your household? And it says in there that the two son-in-laws actually thought Lot were just teasing, so they didn't take it seriously. But it says that the angels took Lot and his wife and the two daughters and left. So he saved them. So obviously the two son-in-laws got left behind because they weren't taking things serious, and they weren't of the same kind of people and probably did not walk in that way. But anyhow, he saved Lot and his wife and his two daughters, and it says that Lot's wife looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. And later on, where we're at in the scriptures, but I'm just going to read my notes, sort of summarizing the whole portion. So it says that that Yahweh rained down fire and brimstone and killed everybody. But before that, Lot asked if he could go to Zoar, and that's where the angels took them and set them. But it says that they were in a cave, and that Lot's two daughters, thinking that the whole world was destroyed except for their father and themselves, they knew that they had to carry on the father's name, and the bloodline had to come through him if the whole world was destroyed. So they got their father drunk and both slept with him that night, and they both had children. And the first son from the one daughter was named Moab, and he's the father of all Moabites. The second son by the second daughter was named Ammon, and they were the Ammonites. So next, Abraham journeys to Negev. Kind of jumps from one story to the other, and he meets King Abimelech, and Abimelech looks upon Sarah, how beautiful she is, and Sarah and Abraham had already made a deal that whenever they moved into a land or went through a land, that she would say that she was his sister so that they wouldn't kill him and take her. So that's what they did with Abimelech. But something told Abimelech something wasn't right, and he didn't take her in and know her. But anyhow, Abraham wasn't lying, because they both had the same father, just different mothers. So he really was, Abraham and Sarah really were sister and brother. But anyhow, Abimelech and him made a pact at the end of this one chapter, and they made a pact together, and it was witnessed in front of 7 ewe lambs. That means like baby lambs, and that they were the witness that there would be, that they wouldn't kill Abimelech. At this time, Sarah had the baby, and she named him Isaac. This was, so obviously this all happened within a year's time. And she had the baby, and she named him Isaac. And Abraham was 100 years old when he was born. Sarah, after she has her child, she looks up and she sees Hagar and Ishmael, and she said, oh no, Ishmael is not going to be get the blessing. And so she made Abraham run her off. So this is when Hagar is out in the desert, and she has one little jug of water, and it's gone, and she's sitting there crying out to God. What is she going to do? Here she has a child of Abraham, and they're both going to die. So she just gave him the last drink and laid down to die. But Yahweh heard her cries and saw her, and gave her water. And this is where in the Bible that she calls him El Roy, the God who sees. And she had a son, and God said that Isaac was the child of promise, and that a great nation would come through him, but also Ishmael would be a great nation. And we see right now the seed of Hagar is, like the Bible says, the wild donkey, and they'll always be against each other, and we see that going on in the world right now, that Ishmael and Isaac, their children, are still at a battle. So now it says that Abraham moved to Beersheba, and this is where he names God El Olam, meaning everlasting God or eternal God. Chapter 22 told of the sacrifice of Isaac on Mount Moriah, which Yahweh teaches and speaks of a future Jerusalem. It's the same place. Mount Moriah, where Isaac is offered up as a sacrifice, is the same place that Yeshua was offered up as a sacrifice. But just before Abraham was going to take the knife and sacrifice his son, he looks up and sees a ram caught in the thicket. And and this is where he names Yahweh Jehovah Yireh, because God provides. He provided a lamb. He provided a lamb for him. He provided a lamb for us. So that is the basics of the Torah portion from the Torah. Now I'm going to move into the Torah portion, 2 Kings 4:1-37. A certain woman whose husband died cried to the prophet Elijah, and she said that the creditors were coming, and she was a Shumanite woman. That the creditors, her husband had died, and the creditors were wanting to take the house and take her 2 sons as bondservants. And she cried out to Elijah for help. And he told her to go home, or go to the neighbors, and go borrow as many bottles and jugs as they could borrow. And to go home and shut the door and start filling the jars. So she started out with 1 jar, and she filled all the jars that she had borrowed from people. And when she'd finished the last one, it stopped. So Elijah told her to go sell everything that she had. No, I'm sorry. To go sell all the oil that she had and pay off her creditors and keep the rest for her and her son to live on. And she did. And it says as time went on, that he went through this other town, and he met a Shumanite woman, and he said she was a great woman. And every time he went through there, she would stop him and feed him. And she talked her husband into making him a room on the roof with a table and a bed and a stand and a lamp. And so every time he would go through there, he would stop and stay there with that couple. But as time went on, he asked her if there was anything that she needed. But because she had family all around her and had everything she needed, she said there was nothing she needed. But the servant of Elijah said, his name was Gehazi, she needs a child. She has an older husband. She probably needs a son. So he told her that this time next year she would have a child. And it's really funny that this is the way this Torah portion always works out, is that in the first part of the Torah portion, Sarah needed a son, and God told her this time next year you'll have a son. So here he's telling the Shumanite woman that was a great woman. She loved God, and she served him and was hospitable. And it shows in the other portion that Abraham was hospitable to the 2 angels and to Yahweh, fed them and cared for them. And then Lot did the same thing with the angels. He cared for them. Well, here in this portion, Elijah is being taken care of and shown hospitality from this Shumanite woman. So he tells her she's going to have a child the next year. So she did. This is exactly what he said. So as time went on and the child grew, the child was out in the field one day with his father. And he started telling his dad, my head, my head. And, so he must have been in great pain in his head. And he fell over. So his father carried him to the mother. And the mother put him on her lap and held him. And at noon, the child died. So she took the child and she went upstairs and laid him on the bed of Elijah. And she came out, she shut the door and she went out. And she told her servant or somebody to get her a donkey and that she was going to ride to Elijah. And in the distance, Elijah saw her coming and sent his servant out to ask what it is. And she didn't tell him. She just said it as well. And he went back and told him. And they sent another servant or something, and she kept saying everything was well. But when she got to Elijah, she fell at his feet and grabbed hold of his ankles, and she said that her child had died. And he sent the servant on ahead to lay his staff, on the child's body. And her and the Elijah would come afterwards. But on ahead, a step of faith, he sent the servant Gehazi on ahead to lay the staff across the child on the bed. And it says that when he got there, the child was still there, and so he went up and he laid face down, nose to nose, eyes to eyes, mouth to mouth, on the top of this child. And he come down, he walked some more. And he went back up and he did it again. Well, this time the child sneezed 7 times. And he got up and was healed. And it says, faith in action is what moved her. It was what moved the child. Now I'm going to read a portion of the New Testament. So I just want to say that about that story, that the woman said it was well. She knew that if she got to Elijah, Elijah would come and heal the child. And even when they sent the servant on ahead, she still believed. And so now we're going to move to Luke 17, 28-37. I'm just going to read it. Likewise, just as it happened in the days of Lot, they were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building. But on the day that Lot came out from Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and killed them all. It will be according to these things on the day of the Son of Man is revealed. In that day he who will be on the roof and his property in the house must not go down to take it. And likewise the one in the field must not return for the things behind. You must continually remember Lot's wife. Whoever would seek to keep his own life safe will lose it, but whoever would lose it will preserve it alive. I say to you, on the night 2 will be on the bed, the one will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding upon the stone, the one will be taken along. In the footnote it says the Greek word paralambano speaks of the bridegroom taking his bride. So it's the same word used there as when a bridegroom would take his bride. And will be taken, and the other will be left. And when they answered, they said to him, When, Lord? And he said to them, Where the body is, there also the eagles will be gathered. So you see that all the Torah portions The old, the new, all of it all goes together. And then I always listen to Bill Cloud's Torah tidbits. It's usually like 15 minutes long, and I just took some notes from that, and I thought they were really good, and I would just add them to the Torah portion. But I just want to say that before I read his, that we see that through both of these that there was faith. God, Abraham believed God, Sarah believed God, Lot did. They were righteous, and because of their faith and what they believed, and God saved them. And the thing that Bill Cloud points out is they lived the way that God wanted them to live by the teachings and instructions of the Torah. They were obedient, they were hospitable, they greeted strangers and took care of them and took them in. And so Bill Cloud's, he says, he called his Vayera, means first serve, then lead. So we see Abraham as a servant. So love the stranger, be hospitable, serve their needs. Yeshua set the same example by washing his disciples' feet. We ought to also humble ourselves. If we humble ourselves, we will be blessed, and our Master will hear us. That's what makes Yahweh hear us, is when we do his will. Sodom filled with pride and did not strengthen the hand of the needy. So they did have sexual sin, Sodom did. So in conclusion, God hears those who are obedient, servants, humble, hospitable. We are called to be kind, considerate to all who God brings into our lives, because one day we could be entertaining strangers. We could be entertaining strangers, but they could be angels. And we have the heart of a servant before we should do any leadership. First the servant, second the leader. I had a place I wanted to read about the sin of Sodom, because the first thing comes to our mind when we think of Sodom and Gomorrah is the sexual sin. But there was more to that sin than just sexual sin. See, everything we've read shows that these people were hospitable. Even the woman that her son was brought back to life, she was hospitable. She had a room and food, and God took care of her because she was hospitable, and she lived the way he wanted her to. They lived righteous lives. And I just want to read to you that not only was sexual sin caused Sodom to be destroyed, but it was because they were not hospitable. So I just want to read out of Ezekiel 16, starting in verse 49. Behold, this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. Pride, fullness of bread. At the bottom it says fullness of bread refers to there being plenty of food, but the hungry and the poor were neglected. Fullness of bread and undisturbed ease was in her and in her daughters. They were just at ease with everything. Life was good. They had everything they needed. Pleasures all the time. Neither did they strengthened the hand of the poor and the needy, and they were haughty and committed abominations before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good, or as I saw fit. So you see, Sodom not only sinned, and that's where the word Sodom comes from, but I'm not getting into that. But there was sexual sin, but it also, all this started with pride and fullness of bread, undisturbed ease, and they weren't hospitable. They didn't take care of the poor and the needy. So I think that's really important to Yahweh when we say that we know him, that we should be hospitable with our godliness. Yeshua says in Matthew 10:74 that when you go into a city and you're not welcomed and they won't receive your word, it says to shake off the dust of your feet and to move on if they don't welcome you into that town. And that has to do with hospitality. And a lot of people say that the people in the South have a lot of hospitality, and my mother always taught me, no matter what, if somebody stops by, make them a cup of coffee and give them what you got. And there's been a lot of people that I've met in my lifetime that did just that. You felt that hospitality when you went there. You were welcomed. And that's what I get out of this Torah portion, is that Abraham was very hospitable and fed Yahweh and the angels and took care of them. Lot did the same thing, had him come into his house, and to the point that he was going to offer up his own daughters. And then here again, Yeshua tells us, and then it says in Luke that at the end of time, it'll be just like in the days of Noah, in the days of Lot. Everybody's going to be out for number one, their own self, and be at ease and have fullness of bread, everything you want, and forgetting that there's people around you that are in need. But anyhow, that's what I got out of the Torah portion today, which was a very good Torah portion. I thought it really spoke to me. Last night I heard Harry Stone talk about the Logos and the Rhema, and I got some Rhema words out of this today, and I hope that this little teaching, I know I'm not a great teacher, but I just wanted to share this with you, so I hope you got something out of it. Thank you.